Today we're going to learn how to subtract positive and negative integers. And our guiding question is, what strategies do we use to add, subtract, multiply, and divide integers? We're still using real world context to understand the inverse relationship between adding and subtracting, and our goal is to really understand subtraction. So, if we think of yesterday, how we talked about hot and cold. If you think of adding heat, that's obvious that it's going to raise the temperature. But what happens if you take away heat? Doesn't it actually lower the temperature if you take it away? And what happens if you take away cold? Doesn't it actually raise the temperature? That's kind of the opposite, isn't it? It's the opposite of what would happen with adding. So what we can actually do with every subtraction problem is change it to adding the opposite. So if you look here, if I have a number, any number like 5, and I'm subtracting a -3, that's like taking away cold. So if you're taking away cold, aren't you actually raising the temperature? And so what we're going to learn to do is to stay. We're going to keep this 5. It's going to stay. We're going to change adding, or change subtraction to adding, and we're going to change a -3 to a +3. I call this stay, change, change. So we're going to sing a little song in class that's going to help you remember, but you always have to think when subtracting, stay, change, change. That will help you remember. Okay, you can also take a look at a sample problem here. We could model this. So we have 7 minus 6. Well, that's pretty obvious. If we think of it like adding the opposite, though, you'll see why it definitely still works to get a +1. So if I have 7 positives, and actually some of you have done it a little different way in your classes, so I'm going to do it the way that you've learned in your classes, where you do it across. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And if I subtract 6, you could just take away these 6 and cross it out. But another way to do this is to add 6 negatives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're going to take those and cancel those out, and it still shows that we have a +1 for an answer. So if you think of it, all subtraction is stay, change, change. You change it into adding the opposite. Then you will see that you end up with the same answer as if you were adding the opposite. So here we go, 5, if we have +5, and now we are adding a +1. We were taking away a -1, but we didn't have any negatives, so that's why this method works better. If I add a +1, then my answer is going to be 6. So again, it was 5 minus a -1. I was taking away a cold, which raises the temperature. I get 6. Over here, I stay. I always keep this same number the same. Don't mess with the first number. I change it to adding, and then I change the second one to the opposite. You always have to change both the subtraction to adding and the negative to a positive. So here we go. We have -3 plus a +5. I'm going to do 3 negatives and 5 positives. These cancel out, and you have +2. You could do more examples if you'd like, but please also take down notes. Here are the notes we're going to do. Stay, change, change is what you're going to remember for all subtraction. And then it'll change it all into an addition problem. Write this example down, 5 minus a -3. If I do stay, change, change, it's 5 plus a +3, and it equals 8. Also, we learned a song yesterday that you may want to write in your notes. I'll write it in a different color. It was for addition. Same signs, add and keep. Add and keep the sign. Different signs, subtract. So see, we still get to subtract, but only when we are adding different signs. Different signs, subtract. What we learned today is that subtraction is really adding the opposite. If you add the opposite, then you will get to use the same rules as we learned yesterday. So your integer war that you're going to play tomorrow in class is to subtract. You need to race. So we'll do this really quickly. This is a -9 minus a -3. You add the opposite. So -9 minus -3 actually becomes plus a +3. You may want to write this down while you're doing it because it's hard. And then different signs subtract, and you use the sign of the bigger number. If you win, make sure you say, I win! Okay, for the mild, this is the mild assignment. Here is the medium. Remember to rewrite all as addition problems. And here is the spicy. Have a great day.